So a little bit of a nugget to help get your Facebook ads approved faster. Never make it too personalized. Never. Facebook won't allow. They don't like that. They won't allow that. Even if you have all this demographic data, they don't want you to make it obvious. So you want to make sure, hey, homeowners that need cash right away, you want to get rid of that old property, you put a picture of an ugly house in that ad, right? That's a very typical ad a lot of investors want to run in any market. Get cash now for that property as is condition, close in 7 days. Very simple ad to run, very basic.
This is the real estate investing experience. We get it. Real estate can be rough sometimes, and that's why we bring in the experts to talk about the experiences you won't hear anywhere else with your hosts, John Cohen and Chris Grinzik.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grinzik. With me, as always, is John Cohen. How's it going, bud?
We are doing good. We are rolling. Thanks to our use of our CRM, I've been doing a much better job now that you're no longer with us of following up with brokers on some deals. So I've been blasting out a lot of emails on some follow-ups just from all the, we use Monday.com. So I'm getting a ton of emails, follow-up. So I've been sending emails out, and I pat myself on the back because the brokers were all wrong with these deals. None of them have sold and none of that stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's a habit I have to reform now or figure out another way to do it. So no, but it's good because I'm trying to fill up our pipeline with some deals to see what happens. Who the hell knows where the market's going? But I think we're doing good. I'm sticking to a strict schedule.
Good. I will graciously take the blame for all the problems over the years. No problem. Feel free to use me as your whipping pole. So no sweat there, but yeah.
I think it was it wasn't a problem. That was it was more or less just the market was, who the hell knows what's going to happen this year. Right. So it was just, we were the fucking wheels were off the bus, right? When we were doing, everything internally. So we just had a lot of systems that we can tweak. We can do better. I think everyone can do better. I don't think anyone does anything perfectly. So it's going to be fun, right? I'm looking forward to 2021. Now that you're not with us, I can have some fun. But no, sure. It's. I was actually talking to one of our investors yesterday, and he said, what do you guys feel about Chris? I said, listen, I am more than happy. I am ecstatic on what he's doing. Right? I could never tell someone not to do that. Simultaneously, I said it wasn't like we fired him or he just came in and, threw his stuff on the desk. I said he's going to do bigger and better things for himself personally. So it was a mutual thing. But at the end of the day, I said, Chris made, if you guys need help, I'm there. Right. So it's not like it was bad. So I think it's just, we're going to both get really good at what we do and be better at what we do. So it's going to be a fun 2021, hopefully, as this year wraps up.
That's the goal, right? So we'll see what happens. We'll see how next year progresses with the new administration, the possibility or likelihood of a COVID vaccine or solution or whatever it is. So, we thought it was only going to be a couple weeks, and I'm kind of getting to that point where I think we're getting closer to the end again. So I'm ready to be proven wrong yet again and have this go on for another year. But I think most people are fed up with it. So one way or another, I feel like this is going to end sometime next year for better or for worse. I don't know what it's going to be, but
I saw a funny, a meme or something. It basically showed like a guy and a guy, it was two people, and it was like walking into like March 2021. It's like, oh shit, it's March again. Right. Cause that's sort of like when the wheels just came off the bus. Right. So it's going to be interesting because it's December 1st. It's been absolutely crazy to think that 2020 is almost over, right? I remember sitting here when we first went into lockdown, and that was 8 months ago or 9 months ago, whatever it was at this point. So it is absolutely crazy.
100%. But let's jump into today's episode. We got a great guest on today. Excited to learn more about him, hear his story, and learn from him as well. So that being said, Gus, thanks for coming on, bud.
Hey guys, how's it going? Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you get the ball rolling? Tell everybody, God, I'm fumbling everything right now. Tell everybody a little bit about you, your background, your experience, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Gus, I go by Gus, full name is Gustavo Muñoz Castro. I'm originally from Mexico, born and raised in Mexico, went to school down here. And then I moved up to Seattle in 2004 to work for Microsoft. So I got recruited at college. I'm an engineer by training. I worked at Microsoft for about a decade. And I actually have my wife to thank. She got bit by the real estate bug, right? She got licensed in 2008, right as the world was ending. That other time, not this time, last time. And it was a wild ride in 2008, 9, and 10. If you guys were in business back then, that's when investing was the only game in town for a while there. Investors were the only clients you could get. They had the cash and they had basically the balls to jump into that market and just pick up properties left and right. It's a lot of what my wife was doing. I got really interested in the business. I got licensed in 2010 as I was still working at Microsoft. And then I finally left Microsoft and my cushy engineering job, 6-figure salary in 2013, because I just realized I had more fun doing real estate. It was, I used most of my skills. I was doing really well at it. I connect with people. I had kind of the gift of gab. And I jumped into it full time in 2013. And after that, I helped build my wife's real estate team. And then I discovered a role within the team called inside sales agent, ISA, right? We hired our first ISAs. That was nuts because back then, this was 2013, 2014, you could call expireds for an hour in the morning and get 2 or 3 appointments that day, right? Because there was that many old expireds still in the marketplace. So we had ISAs doing that, every morning, setting up listing appointments, and I loved that role. So in 2015, I built a new company that just focused on that role and outsourcing that role for other folks, inside sales agents. So, and we started as a cold calling company. So just cold calling, circle prospecting, essentially calling the phone book, calling, expireds for sell by owners, all these kinds of different lists for real estate agents, for investors, anyone and everyone. And that was 2015. And we started with a group of 4 ISAs. We're calling for my team and a couple of friends that helped, were my first clients out of Seattle. And fast forward to today, this morning I have 95 full-time employees calling for teams all across the US and Canada. We have investors, wholesale. And when I say investors, you guys know, I mean, it's everything and anything. Wholesalers, fix and flippers, buy and holders. All those kind of companies. We have solo investors. We have investors with teams. And we also have obviously all kinds of real estate agents, real estate teams, loan officers. And the business has really shifted. Back in 2015, all we did was cold calling. Now in 2020, I think about 80-90% of what we do is based off social media, based off Facebook. Specifically, Facebook is a big part of what we do for everyone in real estate. So that's kind of what I've built my expertise on, especially these last 18 to 24 months, where Facebook has really kind of taken off in real estate and really, really, really becoming a great lead source. And, in a couple of years, it'll be something different, right? But I think in the moment right now, the biggest opportunity that I see for retail real estate, for investors, especially single family investors and small, multifamily investors, Facebook is a tremendous opportunity.
So I think that's interesting because I think one thing that we always talk about is when we were look at, the 100, 200 unit properties in, fairly sizable markets, at least 500,000 people, whatever, or more. There's not a lot of those mom and pop owners left in those spaces. So it's really tough to do off market, but we've said time and time and again, sub $5 million, sub 60 units, all the way down into, residential or, small multifamilies. There's a larger chance of that ability to get in touch with mom and pop, one-off owners, unsophisticated investors, whatever you want to call them. And there's different levels. And it sounds like you guys have had a tremendous amount of success finding them, interacting with them, and getting deals done. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, all the companies and the investors that we work with, the name of the game is deal flow. So they always have to be looking for deals. And a lot of these, investors, I think a lot of them, it's pretty safe to say, a good chunk of their business is still like direct mail and driving for dollars and networking. That's the base of their business. But once you have that base, a lot of these investors, in order to scale, they've got to try to look for other sources. It's not enough to just your farm. It's not enough to just, the network you have. If they want to scale up, build a team, they've got to find something else that works. And a lot of them are go to Google pay-per-click, Facebook ads. Some people are even trying out YouTube ads, right? And some of these markets are so hot, it's worth the money to spend even on YouTube, which is a little bit more expensive, to get deals, right? Because the deals can be so lucrative at this point, because it's a seller's market across the board.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious because, when you go direct mail cold call, you're targeting a specific person or a specific address or property or ownership, whatever. So you have an idea at least of what they own or what you're looking to purchase to a certain degree, right? Depending upon how in depth you get on, the condition of the properties and what type of lists you get and stuff like that. But when you start going into the online advertising world, I would imagine it's very different the way you're approaching people, right?
Correct. Yeah. And that's a great distinction you make, right? Because when you're doing a driving for dollars or a cold list or a kind of list building, you've got someone's name, which is likely to be correct, a reasonable chance correct, their address, which is going to be correct. And you're trying to match them to some kind of phone number or something. You want to reach out to them. It's very direct. You're looking for a specific property, a specific person. When you go online, Facebook, the best you're going to do is a 15-mile radius. That's the smallest area that Facebook's going to let you advertise in, right? And this is a change that came down the last, year and a half, where, Facebook has a new policy for real estate and other types of advertising. They don't allow the hyper targeting tools you have for other businesses because of, federal housing rules and that kind of stuff. So it allows you, there's less specific demographic targeting you can do, but the geographic targeting, the smallest is going to be a 15-mile radius. So you can, best case, you're going to cast a 15-mile net. And you're going to find people with that ad. So it's a little bit of a different challenge, right? When you've got the lists, the challenge is you have to have the stamina, the systems, and the process to follow up with everybody and try to get a contact. It's a grinding game. That's it. Grind. When you're doing the wide net with social media, and this is the same game for Google pay-per-click. It's very similar. When you do the online, it's about casting a wide net and then qualify even more than the list building. Qualify, because you want to get the tire kickers out. You want to get the retail listings out of the way. And you want to make sure that you've got a qualified property and a qualified seller. So it's definitely a different kind of game. And that aspect of it is very different. And people do the qualification a bunch of different ways. You can do it a bunch of different ways. You can actually use a lot of online tools. If you advertise via Facebook, you can drop a lot of questions in the lead form, right? You can actually you only have to leave Facebook, and you can drop 2 or 3 questions that'll segment your potential leads enormously, right? Mm-hmm. Have you remodeled your property in the last 5 years, right? That's a pretty basic question. What kind of what's your property address? What kind of price you're thinking of getting for your property? You can add a bunch of questions that help at least separate the people that might be serious from the ones that aren't serious at all. And I have some investors online that do 15 question questionnaires before they even talk to someone and pick up the phone. They want to know, what's the condition of the roof? What are you going through any personal situation where you need money now? All these, what's your credit score range? All these things to build a pretty good profile on whether that person is going to be a qualifying property and a qualifying distressed owner, right? Because we have investor clients that work with both. They can work with a distressed property. Owner's fine, but the property is in no shape to be sold, and they don't really want to put any money into it. They just want to get rid of it. Distressed property is great. Distressed seller, that's a little bit of a different animal. The property might be fine. They need cash ASAP, right? Mm-hmm. They have to relocate. They lost their job. Their business went under because of COVID, et cetera. They got all these different situations. So those ads can capture both of those potential leads. That's a little bit different, right? So it has advantages that it's wider, but it brings a different set of challenges, specifically in qualification. And then once you've qualified them, same challenge as before. It's a follow-up game. Whoever has the best follow-up game is going to win.
Gotcha. No, I think that's really interesting. I guess one thing that I was thinking about while you were talking about this is in real estate, especially as you get a little bit bigger into, multifamily stuff, is you have a lot of out-of-state owners. So if you're targeting, let's say in Atlanta, Georgia, well, you're not going to get the guy from California or New York who just happens to own, a 20 unit or something down there, or even, a bunch of single family homes. Have you guys thought about that problem at all? Do you guys combat that in certain ways? Or is that just, hey, if you want to get to that person, you've got to go through, a different medium?
Yeah, so out of state owners, like you said, can definitely be a challenge because Facebook, what it allows you to do is people that live in a certain area or that have been within a certain area. But out of state owners might not be either of those. So
Right.
that's one type of owner you're not really going to be successful at getting through Facebook. That Facebook particularly is going to be better for that single family mom and pop owner of that smaller multifamily and the single family properties. By far, it's going to be the largest amount of owners you're going to find.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. I think it's interesting. So how did you, I want to take it a step back because I think it's interesting. I think there's a ton of people that, look to go off market direct owner, and they do a lot of the stuff you said. So many people do direct mail, other people do cold calling. There's people that even do, radio advertisements. What led you to start utilizing different internet options, social media, or, like Google?
Yeah, so for our company, we started by doing cold calling. So that was, the best option out there. Great ROI, great connection rate. You could get multiple appointments a day by calling the right lists. I think the market changed, at least from my perspective, what we were doing. We had a call center, so our calling machine, and we realized that as the technology got better, the spam filters got better, it shifted. So doing 8 hours of cold calling would not yield the same result. It does not yield the same result now than it did 5 years ago. Nowhere near it, actually, right? Because the market has changed, the market has shifted. We followed the clients, right? All of my investor clients in 2015 were doing cold calling. And actually phone book. They were just calling the phone book. A lot of them didn't even have specialized lists. Right now, if you don't have a specialized calling list, there's no way you're going to get any kind of throughput, any kind of positive ROI from that kind of activity. And they shifted towards, more inbound leads. It's a move more towards inbound leads because it's just the economics of it makes sense. The cold calling made a ton of sense a few years ago. Now, less so, right? Because it just takes more dials to contact the person. So we followed the clients. We just went with where the market was going. So now, back then, a lot of cold calling. Now, SMS. You've got ringless voicemails. You've got, and still people that call in are going to send you their information because they got a mailer. That's also a big chunk of it. But Google ads, Facebook ads are just another part of that inbound lead change that we've seen. It's a big shift the last few years.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that shift has happened?
It's the ROI, right? People are looking for what is the next best thing. And, and this happens, it's really similar with the real estate agents. They have kind of a similar thing. Real estate agents, a lot of them do lead generation now the same way they did 10 years ago, the same way they did 20 years ago, right? They've got a farm, they door knock, they go to open houses, and it works for them, right? That's great. There's more options now than there were 20 years ago, right? And you've got a different kind of buyer now than you had 20 years ago. So just because those things work doesn't mean they're going to work for everyone. It doesn't mean they work at the same level they did 20 years ago. So you've got more options. So the people that are looking to grow, to scale, to make an impact are always looking for that edge. They're always looking for that edge. What is going to give me the best ROI? And in real estate, you've got these moments where you've got a new system, a new lead gen source. And for real estate, like for retail real estate, for example, like Craigslist was huge 5 or 6 years ago, right? Craigslist was like an infinite number of leads for like pennies a lead. Right. They weren't always the best leads, but you could get leads every day, day in and day out for almost zero cost through Craigslist, right? That ended, I think, about, 2013, 2014. They shut the door on a lot of that, advertising they used to allow on Craigslist. They stopped it, right? Okay, well, what do we do now? That's when a lot of people shifted to Google pay-per-click. Google pay-per-click used to be the best deal in town for several years. It was, again, pennies a lead or maybe low dollar amounts per lead. For investors, for real estate agents, for loan officers. It was the best deal ever. Amazing ROI. You could get 10x ROI at Google pay-per-click. Not anymore. That lead source is now adequately priced, right? Those leads are going to cost you $30, $40, $50, $60, $100 per qualified lead because people still make money off of it, no doubt, but the price is going to be way different than it was a few years ago. Right now, in this moment, Facebook is one of those opportunities. Very relatively low cost per lead compared to the other sources. They're not always going to be the bottom of the funnel leads. A lot of them are top of the funnel leads. But if you have a system to follow up with them, John was talking about his follow-up system, grinding those leads. It's the same kind of situation with Facebook. You got to work them. You got to work them every day. But definitely it's really, really good ROI if you can figure out a way to get qualified people into that funnel Facebook is that opportunity right now. And I think the next one, it's going to be YouTube, it's going to be TikTok, it's going to be whatever it's going to be. But those opportunities come and go, right? It's always shifting to what's the next best thing? What's the next best thing? So that's kind of a long answer to your question, Chris, but why do you change from one to the next? You're always looking for the one where it's that sweet spot that can give you the 10x ROI, and it changes. And it's Facebook right now, but it'll be something different in a year from now, 2 years from now.
Gotcha. I think one thing that could be helpful for a lot of people is, at this point, it's pretty easy to understand how direct mail, cold calling works. The systems or what you put on it or colors or handwriting, that's all personal preference and kind of testing stuff out. But I think people probably get intimidated by actual advertising through Facebook or Google and trying to figure out, and what do I say and how do I target? I mean, the amount of levers you can pull, the amount of things you can do is frankly overwhelming, even for myself. And I think I have a pretty decent handle on, technology and social media and how that stuff works. So I'm sure there's other people that are just completely blown away and severely intimidated. What was the process like for you? I know you come from the tech background, so maybe that was helpful, but what was the process like for you starting to going into, the advertising world, the marketing world through either Google or Facebook?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me, I am an engineer, but these tools, the advertising tools, the marketing tools that you get through like a Google AdWords or a Facebook ad manager, those are made for consumers. They're not made for, it seems like they're made for engineers, but they're really made for consumers. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of documentation out there. There's tons of YouTube videos out there that kind of show you bit by bit. But my biggest thing has been networking. I always talk to marketers, right? I talk to professional marketers, marketing agency owners. I talk to investors that are doing this at a high level, and I'm always picking their brain. Hey man, what's working right now? What's working right now? And again, these are relationships that I've built, right? So I don't cold message someone and say, hey, tell me what's your best ad campaign working right now. I don't do that. But I'm always I'm also adding value. My superpower is lead conversion, right? I've got a call center. We set massive amounts of appointments every day. So I always help people with that. And then in turn, I was asking, hey, what's working on the advertising side, on the marketing side? And it's really interesting on the marketing side, right now, because again, it's a factor of the market. An unbelievably hot seller's market is always going to make it challenging to find the listings, to find the properties. So right now, the investors that are having the most success are the ones that have a bunch of options. And this is, and I am going more into the single family, smaller multifamily space, but they want to have options. If you're an investor in that space and you've always got the option to fix and flip, you've always got the option to wholesale, whatever it is. But if you have, if you're open to seller financing, or if you're open to assuming a mortgage, if you're open to other options, then you're gonna be more successful because the market is so tight on inventory right now. So you always want to have options for people. That's something that's super key, and that has nothing to do with the ad. That's just a factor of you being successful in a market like this. When you go into specific advertising people are running, it can be as simple as like a cash offer, right? Hey, do you need cash right away? We can help take off a property off your hands. No questions asked, as is condition. Sorry, not no questions asked. I mean, as is condition. Cash within 7-day close. You can put these things on Facebook. There can always be kind of a compliance issue with Facebook. That's a little bit more finicky than Google ever has been, because they don't want you to make it seem like you know a lot about them. You can't say, hey, I know you're in trouble, Mr. Facebook lead. I can help you out. You can't do that on Facebook. They won't allow it. They don't want to make it creepy. Like, hey, how do you know all this about me, right? So you have to word it in a way that you're offering options and you're offering them to the general public, if that makes sense. So a little bit of a nugget to help get your Facebook ads approved faster. Never make it too personalized. Never. Facebook won't allow. They don't like that. They won't allow that. Even if you have all this demographic data, they don't want you to make it obvious. So you want to make sure, hey, homeowners that need cash right away. You want to get rid of that old property, you put a picture of an ugly house in that ad, right? That's a very typical ad a lot of investors want to run in any market. Get cash now for that property, as is condition, close in 7 days. Very simple ad to run, very basic. Most people, they only read the headline. They're not going to read, 8 paragraphs of your advertising. You're scrolling on Facebook. You're actually there for a completely different reason. You only have about 2 seconds to get their attention with a picture. Some people right now that are trying new things, they're actually recording videos like this. They're getting their cell phone out and they're recording a message. Why? Because someone might think that's their friend recording a live video, and they might stop for 2 seconds, read the headline and go, oh, interesting. Oh, Chris is actually trying to buy my house. Oh, do I need that? Yes or no? Let me send them my information. Let me learn more about that. Mm-hmm. It's a concept called interrupt marketing. Interrupt marketing. You got to get them to stop for like a couple seconds, either because the picture looks funny, your video looks funny, your title looks crazy. You got to make them stop for a couple seconds, whatever they're doing, and pay attention to your headline. Mm-hmm. They're probably not going to read more than that headline. So it's got to have an offer in there, something interesting, something of value. If they're, for example, if you're looking not just for distressed properties, but you want distressed homeowners, which is a kind of a different animal, a distressed homeowner, then you want to try and list out, do you need help right now? List out the different reasons someone might need help. Going through a divorce, did you have recent job loss? Did your business go under? Do you need cash right away? We can help you. We have options for you. Give us send us some information, see if you can qualify for a cash offer. Go from there, right? And another thing, again, compliance. You can't be as direct as recently divorced, Facebook users. You can't do that, right? You want to make it as general and as open as possible. And you want to let that ad run at least for 2 or 3 days, so it can actually configure itself, set it up, and actually have a chance to get that cost per lead to a reasonable amount, right? So those are 2 things I would run in any market. Cash now offer, ugly house, we buy properties, and that distressed homeowner looking for different reasons people might be thinking of selling. And those kind of ads, they can get single property owners, all day, every day. They can also get some of those smaller mom and pop multifamily units as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that's awesome. I think that's a ton of information. What would you recommend, or where would you point people to that are looking to start to try testing this out on their own or running certain ads? And, like you just gave 2 great examples for types of ads people should run, but is there anything people should be considering as they start to do it? Like, you said 15-mile radius, the finicky things. Are there other things people should keep in mind as they start to delve into this, or awesome resources they should go check out that aren't like, 100 pages or more worth of content to try to figure it out, or 2 hours or 3 hours worth of video that you got to sit through to figure it out? Like, what's some stuff that people can take home, and kind of start getting through the process tomorrow?
Yeah. So I think one thing is you got to at least explore the Facebook Ads Manager. That's the one, I think that can take it has a little bit of a learning curve. But if you go and tackle it, you can do it, right? Mom and pop shops run Facebook ads. I mean, they're able to do it at a pretty decent level. Before anyone hires like a professional marketing agency or any kind of, you got to try it yourself. You got to know what you're able to do with just a beginner level knowledge. You can be surprised, right? What you can actually accomplish. But you got to have some kind of pointers, some kind of ad ideas, right? So I always go back to YouTube. YouTube is your friend in this case, right? Go out there, spend a couple hours on YouTube looking for investor real estate ads, wholesaling real estate ads, wholesaling ads for Facebook, investor ads for Facebook. Spend some time, do a little bit of research, and just learn enough to be dangerous, right? Learn enough to actually go in there and run the ads manager and go live with a campaign. You've got to do that. And that's the same for any new lead source you're trying out, right? Whether you're doing yellow letters and you're switching to postcards and you're going short form letters, going to long form letters, driving for dollars versus just list building, you gotta try it out. You gotta do it yourself, and you gotta stick with it for a little while, right? It's never gonna any of these lead sources is not gonna be profitable in the first 30 days. It's just not. If it's a good lead source and you're gonna stick with it, it's a 3 to 6 month proposition. That's I'm just being real with you guys. That's the way it works. And the higher the price, the bigger the deal. Typically, the longer that sales cycle is going to take, right? So it is a process, but it starts with you spending a couple hours on doing some research online and finding what's working, right? Because chances are what works in every market probably is going to work in your market. And once you have the basics down, that cash offer, that distressed seller ad, then you can find more interesting things to run, right? You can get more specific about it. You can get cuter with your offer. You can get more stuff in there. You can add additional things. I think any investor should be running those types. If you're doing single family or small multifamily, you should run those ads and just see what happens. And again, you don't need thousands of dollars to make this work. You really need maybe a couple $100, give it 3 to 4 days, and kind of see what your results are and adjust accordingly. Gotcha.
So 2 things, but just very quickly first, I think obviously going on YouTube is great, but sometimes there's almost too much stuff to kind of sort through and weed out. Do you guys put anything out that would be helpful for people, or do you know of anybody else that puts out information like this that you should be like, hey, go check out these guys or these couple people first, and then, you can look at other things too? Or is it just, there's so many out there, it's really tough to miss?
That's a great question. So yes, you're right, 100%, Chris. Sometimes, yeah. And again, it's the wealth of information, and then which one is valuable versus not. How do you tell which is the good stuff? How do you tell which is the bad stuff? That's 100% a challenge. So I have a free Facebook group that we have, a marketing mastermind group, where we talk about these topics. We go down into the weeds of the ads, and I'll have marketers in that group. And the reason they're in that group is to spill the beans. Hey, you gotta help people. The beginners, you gotta help them out, right? Mm-hmm. Even the professional marketing agency owners, they're willing to help people out, because that way they can learn and understand, are they killing it? Are they good? Are they bad? And they have something to compare against. Even when they're thinking of hiring a pro, you got to start by doing it yourself. So you guys can include, the link to my group in the show notes if you want. That's a great resource to jump in. It's absolutely free to join. And we do interviews there every week, talking to marketers. That's a marketing Facebook group, talking about what kind of campaigns are working. And we publish a monthly report. These are the top Facebook campaigns that are performing at the highest rate in the last 30 days. And we publish that for free as well. So that's a good resource. I would recommend that. And there's a lot of courses out there, right? Mm-hmm. And again, with the paid courses, you're paying for someone sifting through this information, summarizing it, and giving it to you nice, in bite-sized chunks, right? There's some people that prefer that. There's a route to go that way. Or you can take the deep dive into the ocean and kind of figure this out on your own. It's all about leverage, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't have a bunch of money, you have a bunch of time, go jump in the ocean. If you have deal flow and you're established, okay, buy the course, pay the marketer to do this for you. So it just kind of depends where you are in the stage of your business.
No, I think that's a really good point. The second thing I wanted to ask, because you said on Facebook, you can't get hyper specific. You can't say like, hey, a recently divorced person in Atlanta or going through a divorce, do you want to sell your home? I would imagine though on YouTube, you can kind of do that, because you can run ads based on what people search on Google. And then if they go watch a video on Christmas decorations, well, you can still target that person because they searched, divorce attorney in Atlanta or something like that. And you can run an ad against that. Have you guys? It's
actually even, so it's actually even better than that. You can actually, so YouTube allows you to target people based on their Google searches. It also allows you to target people based on the channel they're watching in YouTube. So if you're watching, Mr. Divorce Attorney channel, mm-hmm. you can put ads there. Hey, are you recently divorced? You might want to have a property to sell, get rid of that property ASAP. It's better than that, actually, right? So
gotcha.
So Google in general, Google and YouTube use the same ad platform. They have almost none of these restrictions that Facebook has. I'm pretty sure they don't have any of them, right? And they're much less picky about the kind of ads that you run, even on YouTube. The only thing they're super strict about in YouTube is your video targeted for children or not? Because if it's targeted for children, they're going to put the hammer. They're going to bring the hammer down. You're going to have a manual review of that, because they're really touchy about that aspect of it. Other than that, they're like, go for it. Go forth and do it. You can do 100 more things on Google and YouTube than you can on Facebook. That's just the nature of the beast. But absolutely, Chris, there's way more targeting out. You can do income-based targeting, geographic targeting, zip code targeting, demographic targeting, a much more of it on YouTube. And that's always worth testing, because even though a platform says it can segment by income, you always want to take it with a grain of salt, right? I mean, they're guessing at the best case. I would always test that, but I've also seen a lot of investors really kill it on Google AdWords and YouTube by casting the wide net even there, right? They want to make sure they want to do maybe interest-based targeting, right? They want to go for the divorcee YouTube channel. They want to go for the distressed. What would a distressed homeowner look for? What would someone needs to relocate immediately look for? And look for those YouTube channels, those keywords, and target it around that. I even though these platforms have amazing demographic, like YouTube and Google have amazing demographic info, I've seen mixed results with that. It's not the panacea people think it is. But again, test it in your market and find out. I would be careful with that. I always would put an open targeting campaign versus a hyper targeted campaign and compare the results. You can do this even within Facebook. You can't do demographic targeting, but you can do interest-based targeting. You can go, hey, I'm interested in, what would an interesting one be for people that if you want to sell a house, someone is interested in Zillow.com. It looks at Realtor.com. It looks at some of these, real estate websites. If you're interested in that and you've talked about that or posted about that, hey, look at this ad. If that's an interest-based targeting. So if you take that, you can take that same principle and apply it everywhere. You always want to compare the open targeting with the hyper targeting because you might be surprised with the result.
Yeah. No.
Go ahead. I was going to say, do you see a better or equal on like the buy or the sell side? Because I know a lot of people are using it, the ads, people think lead generation on the buy, on investors trying to look for properties. But what about if you're trying to sell stuff or stuff like that? Is there a better or equal success ratio from, on one of the platforms, whether it be Google, YouTube, Facebook? What are you seeing right now?
So all the platforms, Google, Craigslist, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, they all favor when you're generating buyer leads. That they are way better, like 5 times better, 10 times better and more efficient at generating buyer leads than they are seller leads. It's just kind of the way the game works, right? And so a lot of real estate campaigns right now, the seller leads, the seller ads are getting so expensive that it's actually a better ROI to run a buyer campaign and find the buyers that have a property to sell. That is a better ROI than running a pure seller campaign. Hey, you want to know the value of your house? Or they literally would rather just post pictures of homes for sale or homes lists to attract buyers because they're going to find more sellers that way. It's more efficient in the market that we're in right now. So these platforms really, really lend themselves to generate buyer leads. Sellers they're just harder. The conversion rate is lower and the cost per lead is higher. But in a market like this, people will pay that, right? They really want to get those distressed properties. They want to get those retail listings. It's definitely worth it. But that's a great question, John, because it is way harder to generate sellers on these platforms than they are buyers. And that's just a function of, I think, online advertising in general, because buyers, it's very easy to target. Buyers want homes. They want lists of homes. They want pictures of homes. It's very easy to give them what they want. The seller is a little bit harder. It's more finicky. You kind of have to try different things. And the distressed seller, you want to try cash now. You want to try, are you distressed, right? Like giving them different reasons why they might be distressed. And some people try like a lead magnet. Hey, here's an ebook on 3 ways to get cash now for your property. Hey, here's an ebook to help you through, if you're going through a tough time and you're behind on your mortgage, here's an ebook to help you with that situation. So you want to try different things to find them because sellers are definitely a little bit tougher enough to crack.
Yep. No, I was flipping some land this year while I was sitting in my house doing nothing. And I've gone down the rabbit hole for, looking for buyers, and it's worked out really well. And it was to the point where it's like, okay, I should probably spend a little bit more time and energy on this because I am not technology savvy. I'm a pen and paper, it's right here, right? I have a pen and paper in front of me. And when I was going down the rabbit hole, I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. But it was interesting to see how it came through. So it was just fun to play around with it. And it's something that I plan on doing more of as we go, as we sit here.
And did you put the land on Facebook? What did you do to generate those buyers?
So Facebook ads, ad manager. That was the largest source. And I was talking to a buddy of mine that was doing it, and he was trying to help me out with it. And the Facebook pixel and all that stuff on all the websites.
Love it.
So, but it was crazy because you really don't have to spend a lot of money, and you just get, the hardest part is the shit that comes through, right? But if you set up the automations to follow up, and I do a campaign where basically if they come in, they're gonna get automated emails on like the process and understanding it, because what I've seen, people reach out about land and they've never bought anything. Like, I'm surprised they even buy lunch, because the questions they ask sometimes, I'm like, well, are you kidding me? Like, we've had people, I have people that want to send me PayPal the day they see the ad, and they're like, I'll PayPal you $4,000. And I'm like, no. Okay, there's a process. So the education is huge. Educating whatever that lead that comes in and getting them through a qualification, because you're going to spend a ton of time unqualified people. That's probably the biggest value that I could add to this, because other than that, you crushed it. I'm not nearly capable of adding value on the ad side, but I can add value on the qualification side. So I've seen that too.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. So actually, you bring up a couple really important things, right? So the qualification part is key, and there's a few different ways to solve that problem. One is getting on the phone and qualifying them. That's one, right? And that's one that our company, I mean, people hire us to do that, because when you're at scale, generating 300 of these a month, that's a full-time person's job at that point, right? Chasing people down, qualifying them, qualifying the owner, qualifying the property is a part-time or a full-time job. But that's a part of it. Another thing that a lot of marketers do, and I think this is really smart, is they don't send you 300 leads. They're going to send all that traffic to a landing page that has a questionnaire. If you have the patience to fill out a 15, 18 questionnaire, then you get sent over to John's team, right? Because instead of 300, they're going to send you 50, maybe 40, right? But those 40 probably worth your time to call, because they had the time, patience, and energy to answer all those questions about the condition of the property, why do they need the money, et cetera, et cetera. And you know what, John, you should call those 40. You're probably going to have a better chance of contacting them and talking to them than the 300 they would have sent you, right? It's night and day when you do something like that.
So that was funny. So I have a landing page, and I try and funnel people, or it tries to funnel them there, because when I first did it, it was like 4 questions. Then I was like, no. Then it became, it's a lot longer, because the person that gets all the way to the bottom, there's real motivation there somehow.
100%.
Whether it's a
100%.
buy or a sell, they really need it, or they wouldn't go through that process. Most people will just quit. And at the end of the day, I made the analogy the other day talking to somebody talking about efficiency, right? If I could build a house a week, but my houses have problems and I have to go back and fix them, well then, and I'm competing with someone that does a house a month, but when they're done, there's an efficiency level that this business, you don't want to spend your time on stuff that's not going to reap a reward. So the efficiency side and figuring it out. And listen, there's no magic button. There's no magic course. Every market, every person, every business is a little different, but figuring out that efficiency is how you're going to, you're going to put more time in your court, as opposed to chasing people down that are going to turn into nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it's making those choices, testing out that efficiency. On the retail side, I will tell you where we've seen this testing happen the most. If you send me 100 retail Facebook leads, for buyers, we can set appointments with about 10% of them. We've measured it. It's pretty, or live transfer them to an agent, or actually set up an appointment for them about 10% of the time. When you go through this long form, we call it long form. Those are long form leads, right? Because you have to go scroll, do what you did, fill out that questionnaire. Instead of 10% going to appointment, it's 30% that go to an appointment, right? Once they've gone through that process. So the cost per appointment is definitely going to go up. The cost per appointment is going to go up, but your cost per acquisition, right? The total cost of getting that deal goes down when you do that. And this is true on the retail side 100%. So because you spend less time chasing bogus leads, we're an ISA team. You send less leads to the ISA team. Instead of sending 300 leads to the ISA, you send 30 leads to the ISA team. And we can book appointments with those guys all day, all the time. So there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of efficiency gained when you're trying different these tactics, these qualification tactics. At the end of the day, how much does it cost you to get that deal? What's the cost per acquisition for that deal? And my like mantra that I try to tell people to go with is put as many roadblocks and as much friction as you can, and that cost per acquisition is likely going to go down, right? Because you're just talking to more qualified people, and you're spending less of your time chasing the bogus leads.
No, I love that.
We had on one of the earlier episodes, we had a guy now, a friend of ours named Billy Alvarado on, and when he hires people, he does that. He'll first it's send me a resume, but put something special in it. Then it's send me this email, and if you can't follow instructions, well, then you probably can't work for me, right? That's what he says. I love that, to a degree, right? I don't need someone to jump through 18 hoops to answer phones, but at some point, it's the same concept, right? If someone's not reading it, I mean, we needed a bookkeeper, so I put an ad online, and I was getting resumes of people that were 20-year CEOs at companies sending me a resume for a $12 an hour bookkeeper. I'm like, you're not even reading what you're just sending out applications, and it's just that guy would be so much more efficient if you followed directions. Because as the person on this side, if, like you said, those roadblocks are challenges. If you can get through all those challenges, well, then I know there's something at the end of, there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So I like that. Some people want to just be on the phone all day. I learned early on in quarantine that when I was getting calls at 6:30 and 5:30, and we were trying to eat dinner, and we had a 2-year-old daughter. My wife's like, put the fucking phone down. Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, I'm texting people back on Facebook Messenger, and she's like, no, figure another way out. So you got to learn quickly, right? Things change for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And that principle, I agree with you. It applies to more, not just the real estate lead funnel, the hiring funnel, the deal funnel. I mean, anytime you have a situation like that, I 100% agree. And then there's technology that can help you, John, right? You mentioned it really, and I'm going to say this really quickly. You can talk a whole podcast episode about the Facebook pixel, but I will say this, right? We're talking about qualification and getting the more interested people to the front of the line. That's what we're talking about. The Facebook pixel is another way to do that. If you can figure out a way to, when people answer that questionnaire, they go to a particular landing page that you install that pixel on, you're training the pixel, you're training Facebook to go, this is the guy I want, right? So yep. Facebook on the back, you can't do demographic targeting on your end. Facebook can do whatever they want on the back end with their super secret algorithm. They're going to go, oh, this is the kind of guy that John wants, because he answered all these questions, made it to this landing page, and that pixel is collecting as much information as they can on this person and is going back and training the algorithm for your ad campaign to go, they optimize for this kind of person. That's another way to, again, we're just making that machine more efficient, tweaking it, and it's going to save time, money, and effort.
Yep. So you did a better job in 30 seconds than I did watching 4 hours of Facebook pixel videos. I didn't know what I was doing. I was following. Like, put this here, do this, copy this. I don't know why. I knew why I'm doing it, but that actually took 4 hours of my life. I was like, there you go, right? That's why you do it.
It makes sense. I usually don't start with the pixel. Pixel's like the 102 class. The 101 is just run the ad. Like run the ad. The 102 is, okay, you've run ads. You're going to see a huge improvement if you figure this pixel thing out, right? And then, hey, guess what? There's this concept of retargeting. Hey, those people, like, send them another ad. The ones that are already in your funnel, target them again, right? So run ads, pixel them, retarget people. I mean, that's the 101, the 102, the 103. But once you again, it's what I tell people. It's 30 hours of your life to figure these things out. It is. It just is. That's just the amount of time you have to invest in it, right? But it's the same with any new lead source you want to really, really invest some money into. Would you drop the money on a new lead source without doing that? I mean, there's real people that you can't do that, right? You got to figure this out. You got to figure it out for you. And at the end of the day, as the owner, as a rainmaker, you're in charge of that, right? There's really no one else that's going to put their reputation and their money on the line without doing your homework. My recommendation is do the homework, and then if you have the time, leverage, and budget, hire a professional to come in and do it. But you got to put the time into it, and it's worth it. The ROI, figure these tools out, is 100% worth it.
Absolutely, because I mean, like I got involved starting with the Facebook pixel, so I was just way in over my head, and I tried to engineer it backwards, and I still haven't figured it out. So that's a whole nother conversation we could have. But you're 100% right. It's just, you got to, when I remember when I was sitting in my office and it's in the middle of summer and it was, relatively hot outside, and I was having a headache watching, a very tech marketing guy talk about this. I'm like, all right, we're going to, let me just pick up the phone and cold call. You're good at that. You're an idiot, right? So do that. Forget the pixel. But I've just seen it just playing around, but it's been crazy. So I think that's definitely, a separate conversation we can have. But it's a world that every real estate investor should be playing in some way, shape, or form. Granted, you're not looking for 300 unit multifamily super syndicated deals, right? Probably not the space you want to play in, but it's just another tool or another fishing line that you could drop in the water that will show astronomical, and you really don't have to spend a lot of money on it.
Yeah, absolutely. The cost per lead is really the attractiveness of it, right? It's relatively low to start, relatively, a small budget cost per lead. And when you talk about the big multifamilies, either the corporate owned or the LLC backed, the bigger properties, I think we haven't found the person that's figured out the targeting for those guys. I mean, all those people are on Facebook. I mean, I'm pretty certain Facebook or LinkedIn, I mean, they're on social media. They're on these social networks. If someone can put the effort, the time to figure out the targeting for these, even if the conversion rate is really low, John, let's say that for, I said 10% conversion for retail, maybe this is going to be a 0.5% conversion to appointment. Would you drop a couple $1,000s to get a deal like that? It's like any day of the week. It's going to be a lower conversion rate.
Absolutely.
But the massive deals are going to be the lower conversion rate. Yes, they're going to be a bigger cost per acquisition. But again, once you master the basics, you can go on and go, okay, great. Let me put let me get in the mindset of someone that owns a 300-unit property. What Facebook, what do they like? What YouTube channels do they watch? What LinkedIn groups are they a member of? And if you kind of go down that rabbit hole, we're missing the people that are doing this at a high level, right? That can jump in and take that approach and figure it out. The conversion rate will be low. It will be low. But man, I think it's still going to be worth it.
So John, I'm curious.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask you a question because I think it'll help people. As you've spent, some hours and you're working through the process, is there anything that you would have done differently up till now for the person that's like just getting started? Because you obviously, it sounds like you mangled the process a little bit. If you could restart it and do it over, what would you do?
I would have paid someone, knowing what I know today. I probably would have paid someone, because you could probably find someone for really, I'll say inexpensive, right? That's a relative term. Listen, I don't think you're spending $50,000, right? You probably could find a tech guy, and Gus can probably speak to this more, that can at least educate you enough, probably for a couple $1,000, that could set it up and at least explain it to you. And whether you want to take it to the next level or not, I think that I ended up paying like $600-700 for some things here or there, and I had to put it together myself. You could probably, for $1,500, get it all installed and then ask the question on, okay, how do I do this? How do I figure it out? And if you want to spend a little bit more, you can probably get more educated on it. But it's like anything else. I mean, I've spoke about it a lot on this podcast, that, do it, figure it out, and then get it on the list to delegate, right? We just had a conversation with someone. Delegate it quickly. Just understand the concept of it and then delegate it, because I am not a tech person. I try and pretend like I want to be, but I don't. It's not what I do well. So I should have paid early. I still haven't paid for that person, so I have to do it. But if it was in a vacuum, it's shame on me. Obviously, with a lot of moving parts, a lot of things. It's something I want to scale up going into 2021. But I would have bit the bullet and paid for it, because what I've spent trying to figure it out on my own, if I would have paid someone to do it, I probably would have had 30, 40 more better qualified leads. It would have paid for itself. The ROI is, it's not 20, 30%. It's 400, 500, 600%. It's not, you're talking about pennies. So my recommendation, and it's probably the one that people want to hear, pay for it quicker, right? Learn it. As Gus said, dive into the ocean, spend 3, 4, 5 hours. But if you don't have 30, don't spend 30, right? 30 hours is a lot of time. That's basically a 9 to 5 for a week, right? Give or take. Most people don't have that time with kids, family, everything going on. I would learn about it, read it, understand the concept of it, find the right person to integrate it into your platform.
Gotcha. No, I think that's good. Gus, as we kind of wrap up, do you have any kind of final thoughts, recommendations for people, or, things they should know about before, going into this stuff?
I think, kind of, bringing it all together, I think it's important for folks to give this stuff a try. Most investors, I think as far as they go into digital marketing, is Google pay-per-click. That's where most of them kind of start and stop on Google pay-per-click. And going, there's more tools in Google pay-per-click. There's more tools in that. Yes, those are very targeted leads. Yes, those are middle of the funnel leads. It's great. But if you want to look at the big returns, you want to give yourself a chance to build a pipeline for a lot less money. You've got to try out Facebook. You've got to try out Facebook because that's where everyone and their mom is there. 90-year-old grandmas are there. 5-year-old kids are there. It's the platform of the moment. It's where the market is at, right? And once you figure that out, YouTube is the next place you got to go, because it has all the advantages of Google, and none of the restrictions that Facebook has. And I have a pretty good feeling that's where everyone's going to go next. People definitely get intimidated by the video aspect of YouTube, because it's a little bit different than writing some text in Google or even putting a picture in Facebook. but you would be surprised at what gets people's attention, right? I see successful both Facebook and YouTube video ads of people holding out their phone, just being real and talking to people. It's different. It's not the super polished. It's about getting people's attention. Once you kind of flip the bit and figure that out, it's just whatever's going to get people's attention. Then you're going to stop, blocking yourself, and you're just going to give it a try, right? So that's my number one recommendation. Find a way to incorporate these tools into your portfolio. Like John said, spend at least 2-3 hours figuring it out before you hand it off. And if you don't have a bunch of money, you have a bunch of time, take the deep dive and figure these things out. If I were starting as an investor right now, I only have a couple properties in Seattle, I'm not a huge investor. I would figure out social media, man. It's like, hey, if I were like starting from zero, I'd go, then you've got the time to jump in and figure it out. Maybe you're in quarantine in your home right now. A lot of places are going back into quarantine. Well, then you've got a week's time to jump in and take that deep dive. It just depends where you are in your career. But if it's 2 hours or 30, take the time to figure it out, because I think it's going to be a massive ROI if you do that.
Awesome. I love it. Gus, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, follow along, check out your company, where can they do all that stuff?
The best place is my company website, powerisa.com. And obviously I'm on Facebook as well. Look up my name. Gustavo Muñoz Castro is kind of a mouthful. Look for it in the show notes. You can just drop that into Facebook, and I'll pop up. If you type Power ISA to Facebook, it'll also pop up, and you can see my free marketing group. You can jump into that. That's another great place to follow the conversation. Always happy to be a resource for folks.
Gotcha. What was that marketing group again?
It's Power ISA Real Estate Marketing Mastermind. It's also another, but if you type in Power ISA, it's the only group that's going to pop up. So you should be.
Gotcha. Awesome. Definitely going to go check it out. I recommend all you listening go check it out as well. And thank you so much, guys, for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you're not already subscribed, it would mean the world to John and I if you would do so. And if you are, please send it to someone that you think would get a tremendous amount of value from this episode. Gus, once again, thank you so much for coming on. This is awesome.